Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. My patient is a 63-year-old lady, resident of Maldives, a homemaker by profession. She came to us with a complaint of ulceroproliferative growth over the left angle of mouth since 2 months. The growth was associated with the pain over sight. The growth had an insidious onset, and over 2 months, it slowly progressed to its present size. There is no history of bleeding from the site. There is no history of difficulty in swallowing. There is no history of difficulty in chewing. There is no speech difficulty. There is no history of trismus. There is no history of any chronic non-healing ulcer over the site. There are no history of other neck swellings or any similar lesions over other part of the face or neck. Coming to personal history, appetite and sleep normal. She has no known addictions. Medical and surgical history, she is a known case of bronchial asthma and she is on a daily inhaler since 2 years. In addition to this, I would like to ask for any history of occupational exposure to heavy metals or any history of previous radiation to head and neck. I would also like to ask for any history of recent avulsion of tooth, any change in voice, any drooling of saliva or excess salivation. I would also like to take histories of cough, hemoptysis or breathlessness, history of any lumps in the abdomen, any recent bone loss of weight or loss of appetite. Moving to the examination. On examination, Karnofsky performance score is 80. Patient appears to be moderately built and nourished. Coming to detailed examination, her mouth opening is greater than 3 finger breadths. On inspection, there is an ulceroproliferative lesion over the left angle of mouth, which is of size 2 into 2 centimeter. It is involving the left lateral edges of both the upper lip and the lower lip, upper lip to a greater extent. There are no similar lesions in other areas. Dental hygiene is poor. On palpation, there is no local rise of temperature or tenderness. It is hard in consistency and does not bleed on touch. Both sides of the neck were palpated and there were no palpable knots. Donor sites were examined and found adequate. Other systems, no abnormalities detected. Sir, Ankita, if you could please go back to the photograph.
You are sharing the screen.
Okay, sorry. Sir, but on closer perusal of the photograph, I could find that there's a whitish patch over the inner aspect of the mouth, which does not seem to involve the gingivocal sulcus, but extends to a distance around 2 centimeters from the angle of mouth and is affecting the cheek. The photograph I got was not clear per se, but if you look carefully, you can find a white. Yes, sir, whitish patch.
Yes.
Sir. So, with the given data, my provisional diagnosis would be an ulceroproliferative lesion involving the left angle of mouth, probably squamous cell carcinoma with a clinical staging of T2, N0, M0, which might be stage 2. And in this case, I would like to proceed with investigations. Given the data which I have received, I would go for an incisional biopsy of 2 regions. I would go for incisional biopsy of lesion over the lip and the whitish patch over the cheek. Then, after confirming the diagnosis, I would like to do a CECT to know the extent of the disease, other structures it has involved. If the whitish patch turns out to be malignant, I would also like to do an orthopantomogram to see if the mandibular is involved and the status of the infraalveolar mental foramen. I would like to do a chest X-ray to rule out any metastasis to the lung, and I would like to do the usual panel of investigations to make the patient fit for anesthesia. After confirming the diagnosis, I would like to explain the nature of the disease, the progression of the disease, the various treatment modalities available, the advantages or disadvantages of each treatment modality, and which one I would follow to the patient. So, sir, in this case, my plan would differ according to the biopsy result from the whitish patch over the cheek.
Okay.
Hypothetically, if I'm getting squamous cell carcinoma over the lip and just a leukoplakia or lichen planus over the cheek, my plan would be different rather than what if I get a squamous cell carcinoma over the cheek. So I have two sets of plans.
Yeah.
If my squamous cell, if my biopsy reports are squamous cell carcinoma over the lip with a non-malignant lesion over the cheek, my final defect would be a 4x4 lesion. Considering that I am taking a 1 centimeter margin on both sides, the wide local excision would involve the skin, the mucosa, and the commissure. So my plan would be a slender flap to cover the defect with a supraumbilical neck dissection on the ipsilateral side. My second plan would be a inferiorly based nasolabial flap. If my patch over the cheek turns out to be malignant, then my defect would be definitely larger, in which case I would like to proceed with a free radial forearm flap from the left hand with a palmaris longus sling and an ipsilateral supraumbilical neck dissection.
Okay. Okay, so let us say that is it's the your answer that the first option is the correct option. Let us say it was a leukoplakia of the cheek
Sure.
and squamous cell carcinoma of the commissure area.
Sure.
So one of the first questions that we would be asking you is the anatomy of the lips. Can you briefly tell the anatomy of the lips? The structures in
The
the lip.
anatomy of the lip.
Yeah.
Anatomy of the lip. It is a trilaminar structure with skin, muscle, and mucosa. The arterial supply of the upper lip is a superior labial artery, and the lower lip is inferior labial artery, which are branches of the facial artery.
There's a
The
facial
nerve
artery in
supply
relation to the
is,
lip. What is the position of the
sir,
facial artery in relation to the lip?
sir, the inferior labial artery arises infralateral to the commissure, sir, and the superior labial artery,
No. Infralateral to the commissure. Okay, fine.
sir,
Yeah.
and the superior
So,
labial artery arises supralateral to
what is
this
the
commissure,
position
sir.
of the very important when we are doing reconstruction? What is the position of the facial artery in relation to the commissure?
Sir, the facial artery would wind around the mandible, then it would ascend in a linear, in a tortuous direction towards the medial canthus, sir, giving branches
Yeah.
along the way.
No. In relation, it's a surface marking. No? When we're actually, you can actually feel it.
Okay,
That's
sir.
a different thing. But you should know the surface marking also. In relation to your commissure, where at what position would you expect the facial artery? It's around 1 centimeter
One
lateral to
centimeter
the
lateral,
commissure.
sir.
Yeah,
1 centimeter lateral, sir.
1.5 centimeter lateral to the commissure is your
Sir.
this one. And then you have what is the position of your vessels, the vessels, the labial vessels.
Sir, if I am, sir, the superior labial vessel usually rise between the vermilion, so orbicularis oculi and the mucosa. It can also lie within the orbicularis oculi muscle.
Very
The
good.
inferior labial artery usually lies between the mucosa and the orbicularis oculi.
Very good.
There
And
are
the surface marking.
it approximately near the lower border of the vermilion, sir, on the
See,
inner side.
where the white roll is there. No?
Sir, where the white.
Where the white roll is there, exactly the posterior portion on the between the mucosa and the muscle or intramuscular if it is upper lip. That is a position where the vessels would be lying. So that is again a very important thing for us to know about these things. Okay.
Sir.
So what
Sensory
are the
sequence.
muscles? What are the muscles of the upper lip or of the lip?
So the main muscle is the orbicularis oris, which is divided into two parts. The outer part is called the pars reticularis, pars marginalis, and the inner part is called the pars peripherales. The outer part serves to project the lip away from the teeth, and the inner part the inner part pulses the lips towards the teeth. Then there are two sets of muscle that help with elevation and depression of the lip. Elevation of the lip, the major part is carried by levator anguli oris and the zygomaticus major. The minor functions are done by zygomaticus minor and the levator labii superioris. And depression of the lip, the major part is done by depressor anguli oris and platysma, and the minor part is done by depressor labii inferioris.
Very good. And so it is supplied by
And
which nerve?
it is supplied by the buccal and mandibular branches of the facial nerve. The
Which is
elevator muscles are supplied by the buccal branches of the facial nerve, and the depressor are supplied by the marginal mandibular branch of the facial nerve, and sensory supplies by mandibular, maxillary, and mandibular divisions of the trigeminal nerve, upper and lower lip respectively.
what is the origin of the origin and insertion of the orbicularis oris?
Sir, the orbicular.
That's a tricky question. Huh?
Sir, it is actually subcutaneous.
Orbicularis oris is supposed to originate actually from the modulus and actually
Modulus,
to the modulus, and then goes and inserts onto the opposite filtral cord. So that is how it is supposed to form the first time. So where is the modulus?
Sir, modulus is the interdigitation of the muscles of the lip. It is found 1 to 1.5 centimeter lateral to the commissure, sir. It can be palpated by both fingers as a fibrous band.
Very good. So here, can you tell that what are the important things that you think about when you actually reconstruct it? What are the important things that you have to think about when you reconstruct it?
There are, coming to reconstruction of the lip, there are aesthetic and functional considerations. Aesthetic considerations would include matching of the vermilion and the white roll, and functional considerations would include proper contact of the upper and lower lip, and competency of the oral sphincter. So, and proper ICSs would include proper appearance of the commissure without rounding.
Okay. So
and
normally what we can actually think about is the size of the opening oral opening. Okay. Size is very important because for hygiene purpose and for actually
denture insertion.
And another important thing is the sensation. You should actually think about the sensation when you're actually doing the reconstruction. Okay. And then of course, as far as possible, try to actually preserve the neurovascular bundle, because there are a lot of flaps which have been described previously where actually the neural part is actually compromised. So when the neural part is compromised, sometimes actually you might not get a good function, especially of the lower lip, and there could be some pooling of saliva, etc. Why is the lower lip a better donor of tissue when you compare it to the upper lip?
Sir, it is said that around 30% defect involving 30% can be because the lower lip is a single aesthetic subunit compared to the upper lip, where there are 3 subunits, and any loss more than 25% can cause a retraction of the philtrum to the affected side.
Yes, because there are definitive parts of the upper lip. Because you have a philtrum, you have a Cupid's bow, and then you have the muscles actually attached to the piriform aperture area. So because of that, you have actually a restricted movement of the upper lip. So it is not actually a good thing to actually reconstruct the lower lip. And the lower lip, but it's actually a free-lying structure, so it's actually easy for us to actually utilize the lower lip for reconstruction of the upper lip. Before we go to the flaps and other things, I would ask Radhakrishnan and Deepak also. Deepak is there, I think. Deepak?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Deepak, any questions that you want to ask?
No, in this patient, the white lesion that you see is contiguous with the ulceroproliferative lesion that is seen in the commissure, correct?
As far as I can see, it is continuous with the lesion in the commissure.
Yeah, so there is no reason for you. So in a malignancy, you have to have a gross margin of 1.5 centimeters. So when you take a gross margin of 1.5 centimeters, it will include that white lesion also. The question is whether you would extend beyond that white lesion.
Sorry, question was clear to come again.
So when you do a 1.5 centimeter gross margin,
sir,
you would include that white lesion also.
Sir. Okay.
So the question is whether you want to include another 1.5 centimeters beyond that white lesion. And that, as you rightly said, you'd want to do a biopsy to rule out whether that also has invasive squamous cell, invasive carcinoma, or has moderate to severe dysplasia.
Sir.
Because that white patch has another focus of squamous cell carcinoma, or if it has uh, severe, moderate to severe dysplasia, you would treat it like cancer also, as a contiguous cancer also, and extend your excision into the buccal mucosa.
Sir.
I don't see in any way how a carapandic, you said Eslander would work for this patient, because an Eslander is basically meant for lip reconstruction. Eslander does nothing for buccal mucosa reconstruction. And if you have any pre-malignant lesion surrounding a malignant lesion, the safest thing would be is to excise it. You're not looking at a cutaneous lip or a vermilion lip or a mucosal lip lesion alone, or a commissure lesion alone. You're looking at a lesion which is extending into the buccal mucosa. So I don't see how an Eslander would be able to cover that soft tissue defect inside the buccal mucosa.
So
Do you
then
understand
my
my
plan.
point?
Yes, sir.
You understand my point?
Yes, sir.
Because none of the lip switches that we do, whether it's Gillies or not Gillies, whether it's the Abbey or Eslander, whatever we do, we're only reconstructing lip with lip. We cannot extend it to the mucosa.
Sir.
So you might have to think of some other flap which will give you a neo commissure, which might or might not be competent. And you might have to reconstruct the buccal mucosa also.
Sir.
Yeah. So I want to ask you one thing. What is the minimum lip stock that you should have to avoid microstoma? What is the permissible limit of mouth opening that you can have where the patient can be functional?
2 finger, 3 finger. Normal mouth opening is
So
more
if you,
than 3 finger,
I'm
but sir,
talking about intercommissural distance.
intercommissural. I'm not.
Distance. So what is a normal intercommissural distance in adult male? It's about 5 to 6 centimeters. And the lowest intercommissural distance that somebody can tolerate is 3 centimeters, because that is the width of a tablespoon. So for you to have a 3 centimeter intercommissural distance, you should have a minimum of 9 centimeters of lip that has to be retained. That is the calculation. So if you lose 6 centimeters of lip, either upper or lower or combined, then you will leave the patient with 3 centimeters or less intercommissural distance. So whatever lip reconstruction you do, either you borrow from lip, whether you borrow from cheek, or you import distant tissue, you have to make sure that the minimum amount of lip stock that the patient should have reconstructed, bare minimum should be 9 centimeters, which will equate to an intercommissural distance of 3 centimeters. Yeah. And you said upper lip has 3 aesthetic units. I think upper lip has 2 aesthetic units.
Sir, it is the filtrum is
Sean
filter.
Baker, I don't know. Sean
Two
Baker, 2.
2 lateral and 1 medial subunits.
I don't know. Just check. Sean Baker facial plastic says it's 2, but you may be right. I might be wrong. So just have a look at that also.
Sir. Okay.
So what is the common complication of an Eslander flap?
In there would be a microstomia, sir.
No, microstoma is more common with carapandic. In an Eslander, you'll have a rounded commissure.
Rounded commissure, sir.
And you're not adding any lip stock.
Sir.
So in all of the lip switches, the problem is you're not augmenting the lip stock.
Sir.
So, and then you'll have a rounded commissure also. So that would be, and you said investigations are fine. Your approach to excision is fine. Looking for chest metastasis is fine. Neck dissection is fine. All that is okay. And then structure of lip, you said it's okay. All the other things are fine.
So coming to the flaps that you're going to do, that is a question. So that your first option, you said you're going to actually do a slander, right?
Sir. Sir.
So again, a slander is, I think, again, too small a flap for this particular case. You might not be able to, it might not come adequately a slander. Then what are the other
Hello.
options that you? Yeah, Radarshan.
Sandeep,
Yeah.
see,
Now it is
there
very
are
clear.
there are two issues in this case.
Yeah.
One is continence, and the other is commissure width of the commissure. And the
Yeah.
third thing is, because the lesion is extending into the cheek, I don't see any reason for you to include or use a lip switch, any type of lip switch, because the lesion is extending into the cheek mucosa. Necessarily, you need to buy tissues from outside only.
Yeah.
Do you get me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you need to think of some distant flap, because all these local flaps, slander, and all these things will cause blunting of the angle of the mouth. Of course, she is around 61 years old lady. Suppose if this happens to be an young lady, definitely this is an aesthetic deformity.
Sir.
Okay. So, and another thing is a basic plastic surgical precept. You can rob Peter to pay Paul, provided Rob is rich also. Here the lesion is almost abutting into the upper lip also, and also there is extension into the cheek mucosa, isn't it?
Sir.
Yes.
And you should treat it as one lesion only, unless proved otherwise.
Sir, so if I'm treating as a contiguous lesion, my resulting defect will be large. So then I would
Yes.
proceed
Definitely.
So the
reconstruct
size,
the defect
you
with
said,
the
you said the size is 4 into 4 centimeters, right?
Sir, if I did not take into account the lesion on the cheek, if I take into account the lesion on the cheek, then my defect would be much larger, sir.
See,
Yeah.
It
I
would be around
told in
6
earlier
into 4.
class also. I think I bring it to your attention. See, anything in the buccal mucosa. See, these are all they function as a focus kind of lesion. That is, if you have a vitelligenous patch, or if you have a acanthosis, or whatever it is, you should necessarily do a biopsy. If you have not done a biopsy, it's better always to extend it and excise it, because these are all premalignant lesions, and we do not know, it may be harboring CIS also. So better to be safe than to be sorry. So you should include this also in the excision margin. Okay. So in that case, you will not be left with any choice of flaps from the lower lip
Local
or upper
flaps.
lip. Yes, local flaps.
So your options.
So now,
In that
having
case,
considered, yeah, please.
my first plan would be to proceed with the free radial forearm flap, incorporating a palmaris longus sling harvested from the left upper limb, sir.
Left upper limb. Have you put the photograph of the left upper limb?
Sir, I
No,
do not
they would-
receive the
they will
photograph.
not be having
It's
the
okay.
photograph.
It's okay. Okay. Suppose okay, left radial forearm flap, and you can definitely use it for commissure. It can get a this one, palmaris longus. You want to use it as a sling.
Yes.
Yeah, great. Where will you base the donor vessel?
Sir, my donor vessel can be this, either the facial artery or the superior thyroid artery, which will be anastomosed to the
Artery,
radial.
where do you want to go? Are you planning for
Sir,
a block dissection?
Sir, I will, since this is a proven case of malignancy, I would proceed with the suprahumeral neck dissection on the ipsilateral side, sir.
Okay. So you want to use the superior thyroid artery?
Superior thyroid artery or the facial artery or the superior thyroid artery, sir.
Okay. So suppose, is there any comorbid condition in this patient?
Sir, patient is a known case of bronchial asthma who is taking inhaler since 2 years, sir.
Okay. Apart from that, there is no other comorbid conditions. Okay. So you can, what is the excision margin you want to give?
1 centimeter. 1.5
Normally in all this squamous cell, this is a squamous cell carcinoma, no?
Yes.
Squamous
Sir,
cell
the
carcinoma.
biopsy, sir.
Biopsy?
The biopsy results were not given, sir.
Not given.
Sir,
so you can ask people to post the biopsy results if they have. Nedgeridge biopsy results?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
please.
sir. If we can stop sharing the screen, I can post it.
Okay, sir. I'm sharing. I've stopped sharing the screen.
Ah,
Yeah,
one.
you can read it out. There is nothing wrong in it.
It's moderately differentiated squamous cell carcinoma.
Yeah, moderately differentiated squamous cell carcinoma.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
it's an ulceroproliferative growth, moderately differentiated squamous cell carcinoma. So, what is that you want to do?
Sir, I would proceed
1.5.
with a wide localization of 1 centimeter, 1 to 1.5 centimeter margins.
Okay.
There is actually a confusion between 1 centimeter and 1.5. Deepak, what is the current status, Deepak? Because
It's
is it
1 to 1.5. So that doesn't really matter. It's 1 to 1.5.
1.5?
That is a gross margin, and then hoping to achieve a microscopic margin of 0.5 centimeters. So it's 1 to 1.5 centimeters.
Yeah. So if you're taking 1.5 centimeters, Joseph, definitely the size of this one would be at least 5 into 5
Sir,
centimeters.
5 into 5 centimeters.
See, having not done a biopsy of that leukoplakic lesion or whatever it is, whether it is a leukoplakia or a vertiginous patch or whatever it is, lichen planus or whatever it is, I would prefer to give a 1.5 centimeter margin.
Sir.
Had you done a biopsy of that area also, then we can decide about it, isn't it,
Sir.
Joseph?
Sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you get me?
Yes, sir.
What, Deepak?
Sir?
In this case, the biopsy has not been done of the white lesion, I think, white patch.
Sir, even if you have biopsy, you might have geographical miss, sir.
Yeah, graphical.
Like
Yes.
the area we take might be negative, sir.
Negative.
So in contiguous lesions like this, especially at the junction where mucosa and the skin meet, sir, in that mucocutaneous junction, always you have to be careful, sir.
Yeah, to be err on the even if you err on the higher side, it is always better. I think.
It is better. It is better to err.
Because anyway, it's only another 2 centimeters of flap that we are going to put in.
Yes.
So better, sir. If it was only on the buccal mucosa or if it was widely in the oral cavity, then you can ignore. But in the mucocutaneous junction, any whitish patch which is contiguous with the exophytic growth, better to take it out, sir. I shouldn't leave it there, sir.
Yeah, that's what I also felt. So it's a dubious area. It's better to. Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah,
the
commissioner
is going. Anyway, the commissioner is going there, so more not much.
Yeah, 0.5 centimeter this way or that way, it is not going to matter. And you are planning to give a continent commissioner with using
Palmaris longus.
Palmaris longus. Okay.
So, what are the tests for Palmaris longus? How do you test if the patient has an intact Palmaris?
Sir, I will ask the patient to touch the tip of his thumb with the tip of his little finger and ask him to flex the wrist joint, sir.
Yeah, there are some names to that test. I think finger hook test and bunch finger test or something like that. I forgot all those things. There is a name to it, but it basically is what you're saying. If you don't have Palmaris tendon, you can obviously take facial atta or
facial slips.
Or you can take plantaris also.
Plantaris.
That also is fine. How do you tunnel the tendon?
Sir, I would try to weave the tendon to a short distance in the existing orbicularis oris muscle, sir.
No. And in the flap, how will you tunnel the tendon?
Sir, it depends on the orientation of my flap, sir. If I am sir, in this case, longer dimension of the flap will be in the transverse direction.
It's going to be transverse only. So how are you going to thread the tendon? So you have to thread the tendon subcuticularly, okay? You have to make a space between the pedicle and the skin. Because if you put the tendon beyond the pedicle, you'll constrict the pedicle and the distal part of the flap which comes outside the commissure and the cheek skin will die. You understood, no?
Sir.
You have to create a pocket between the pedicle and the dermis or the subcutaneous tissue.
Sir.
And then you take the tendon through that hole. Do you understand or not?
Yes.
Otherwise, if you come on the other side of the pedicle, what's going to happen? You're going to constrict the pedicle and the distal part of the flap which comes out of the commissure and the cheek will die because of the constriction. And then you take the tendon mucosally subcutaneously, and hitch it via figure of 8 spatulating suture on the orbicularis muscle on the upper lip and the lower lip in the midline.
Sir.
You understand?